Mm. Ah, tea always burns me. Coffee doesn't burn me. Why do you do me like that, tea? Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are too. Today I am here with a book tag. I haven't done a tag in a very long time, but it's not just any tag. It's a tag that I created last year. I had a really good time with it, so I thought I'd do it again. There might be a few of you who are asking yourselves, isn't it a little bit early to be doing anything Christmas related? Perhaps. I totally understand. I don't usually get into the Christmas spirit until after Thanksgiving, more specifically December 1st. But there are some folks who do get into the Christmas spirit the day after Halloween, and I totally get it. Plus, I wanted to make sure I got this tag out there so that people who were interested in doing this tag had plenty of time to do it. But all of that aside, book tags to me are just excuses to talk about random books because of random questions. So I was in the mood to do exactly that, and that's what we're going to do. So as per the thumbnail, this is called the Christmas Traditions tag. It is not meant to be exclusive. I realize there are other holidays during this time of year that people of different faiths celebrate, but I celebrate Christmas, so that's what I went with. And I realize that Christmas is based in religion, but I've never really been a religious person. So all of these questions are mostly based in things that a lot of us are very familiar with when it comes to Christmas or this time of year. And then one other thing I'll say about this tag is that you can answer these questions not only with books that you've read this past year, you can also apply these questions to books perhaps that you are looking forward to read next year. If you're interested in seeing my original tag video that I did last year, or you want to see my answers that I had for last year, I'll go ahead and share that link with you down in the description box below. And if memory serves, I think I talk a little bit more about the history behind the different traditions that I talk about in that video. So if you're interested in that, you might want to look at that video also. Let's just get started with the tag. So the first prompt is red, green, and gold colors. Pick a book with any combination of those colors. So it could have all three colors, or it could be red and gold, red and green, or green and gold. So let's see. That's a possibility. I'm going to have to get out of my chair to look for this one. Pre-planning might have been a good thing. Phew, I thought I wasn't going to be able to find a book in my library with these colors. Now it seems obvious. Well, I don't know why I didn't think of this to begin with, but the book that I selected for this prompt is The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett. This is 1.5 in the Appeal series, and I don't know how many books are going to be in that series, but I read The Appeal. I can't remember if I read it this year or last year, but this is just kind of a follow-up to that book, and it's just a little novella, and I just read it recently. It's going to be in my mid-month wrap-up for November, so I'll talk more about that. It has some of the same characters as The Appeal had, and of course, it's got a Christmas theme to it, but as you can see, it's got green and red on the cover. Next prompt is carol singing. What is your favorite Christmas carol? And then take a word from the title of that song and pick a book that has that word in it. My all-time favorite Christmas carol, always has been, always will be, is Last Christmas by George Michael. And I'll pick two books for this prompt. I'll pick a book that I read this past year, and that is The Last Love Note by Emma Gray. This is I believe a debut novel, and I read the arc of it, and it doesn't even come out, I think, until the end of this month and end of November. I talked about it in a recent wrap-up. It's a love story, not to be confused with a romance, and I really, really enjoyed it. It takes place in Australia, the author is Australian, and I really enjoyed it. I will link the wrap-up in which I talked about The Last Love Note down below. And the book that I want to read next year that has the word last in it is Last Will by Bryn Greenwood. Now, I bring this up just because it's a book that's been on my TBR forever. Bryn Greenwood wrote one of my favorite books of all time, and that is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. And I want to read her entire backlist. She doesn't have a real big one, but Last Will is one of them. So that is the other book that I want to choose for this prompt. The next prompt is Christmas trees, wreaths, and evergreen foliage. Pick a book that features nature as a main character. For this prompt, I am picking The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey. I read this book this past year. I very much enjoyed it. So I don't say this during every prompt. All the books that I pick for these prompts that I've read this past year, I will link the wrap up in which I talk about it down below. This book is a memoir of the author when she became very, very ill, completely bedridden, and I mean completely bedridden. Even she had to be completely horizontal. She couldn't even sit up for months. Circumstances led for her to have a wild snail in the plant that she kept on her nightstand, and all she could do really all day long for hours was watch this snail. And she pretty much recorded its behavior over many months. And I found it absolutely fascinating, and I really loved it, and I highly recommend it. The next prompt is sending cards. Pick your favorite epistolary book or an epistolary book that you want to read next year. The book I picked for this prompt, I actually have it in my library, is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. I believe this is told in a series of diary entries. This has been on my TBR ever since I read the Book of Form and Emptiness, which was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction last year. And I really enjoyed it. And so I've heard nothing but good things about this book. I'm really hoping that I will be able to read it finally next year. The next prompt is Mistletoe. Pick a book that features unrequited love. The book I picked for this prompt was Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. This was a 5-star read for me this year. I absolutely love it. I think that I discovered this book through the Booktube prize this year, if memory serves. Absolutely love this book. This is an historical fiction book that takes place in the 70s, and it follows a young woman by the name of Sybil. She's a young Black woman who's a nurse in the Deep South, and she discovers that the clinic that she works for is handing out birth control mostly to the poor or people of color, and Sybil decides to try to do something about it. And it really just shines a light on the actual events of the tremendous violation of reproductive rights that was going on. Really, really great book. Can't recommend it enough. This next prompt, I have to laugh every time I think about it. So the next prompt is Santa Claus. And last year, the way I described it is pick a book with a character who's somewhat frightening and unlikable, but endearing anyways. And a lot of people took issue with the fact that I characterized Santa as frightening and unlikable. So what I meant by that is, here's a guy who basically comes into your house and eats your food and leaves presents. So not really unlikable, I guess. Odd. We're just going to tweak that prompt a little bit. Pick a book that has an odd character, but you love anyways. And I thought of 2 books and 2 specific characters for this prompt. The first one is actually both of them are quite recent reads. The first one is Ruth Zardo from Still Life by Louise Penny. I started this series, I believe, just last month, and I absolutely love it. I am currently reading the second in the series, and she is featured in that book too. She is a crotchety old woman who happens to be a brilliant poet, and she's hilarious. I absolutely love her. And the other character that I thought of with this prompt was the mountain lion from Open Throat by Henry Hoke. That was an interesting little novella, but the mountain lion is supposedly queer, and the whole book is from his perspective. And there were some interesting themes in that book. I just didn't know quite what to make of it, but it is interesting. The next prompt is Nativity Scenes. Pick a book that is a family-based historical fiction. Another 5-star read for me for this prompt is Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. I think I also discovered this one through the Booktube prize, and it was also long listed, I want to say, for the Women's Prize. There is a lot going on in this book, but mainly you're following a group of women, a family of women, and 3 generations of this family spanning from the 1930s to 1990s, I believe. It's mainly following a young girl and her younger sister and her mom who flee a violent household and go and live in Memphis with other family members. And it's just a beautiful story, beautifully told. Lots going on. I really love this book. If you haven't read it yet and it's been on your TBR for a while, I hope this serves as a reminder to pick it up. It's so good. The next prompt is Elf on a Shelf. Pick a book that's on your shelf that always catches your eye, but for whatever reason, you never pick it up. For me, really just one book. I'm going to go with Long Division by Keith Lehman. What's interesting about this book is that there are What's interesting about this book is it's split up into two parts. So you have the front here, and then you'll see the back part here, the words are upside down. So you have the back part of it too, which is clearly the back, but I think it's a different version of the same story. I'm not really sure. So this definitely has me intrigued. It says told in two separate stories, and it says the two stories ultimately converge. So I'm really, really fascinated by how this is going to play out. So yeah, it always catches my eye, but I'm a little intimidated by it. I don't know if I'm going to get it. So yeah, have any of you read this book? I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. The next prompt is Christmas movies. Name your favorite adaptation or a book that you want to see adapted into a movie or show. For me, the first one that popped up into my mind is a book that I just recently read, and that is Swan Song by Robert McCammon. I absolutely love this book. It's got a very high probability of being in my top 5 of the year. I love this book so much, and it sat on my shelf for several years. It is a post-apocalyptic story, very similar to Stephen King's The Stand. Lots of different characters, lots going on, moments of terror, but also moments of hope and poignant moments. Really, really well written. It's almost 1,000 pages, and if you know me, you know that I don't really care for super, super long books, but this one I didn't want to end, so I didn't take any points off for how long it was. So good. Yeah, I would love to see that in a movie, but there's so much that I'm not sure how they would translate onto the screen, and it would be 9,000 hours. The next prompt is Ugly Sweaters. Pick a book that made you laugh out loud. This one was easy for me too. Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. Marcellus. Need I say more? The next prompt is Eggnog. Now, eggnog is one of those things that you either love or you hate. There's no in between. Pick a book that you absolutely love and a lot of people hate, or vice versa. Pick a book that you absolutely despise, but so many people love. For me, this was easy. Lessons in Chemistry I thought was overhyped. Now, if I were to go in a different direction, I would say the most recent one is Ashley Winstead's latest book, Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I think a lot of people are liking it. I absolutely love that book, but I think what happens with that one is that Ashley Winstead fans, having read all her other stuff, this seems to be their least favorite. But for me, it's my first Ashley Winstead, so maybe if I read her other stuff, I'll have the same experience. Who knows? But I love that book, and it seems to not be a favorite among Winstead fans. The next prompt is exchanging gifts. So pick a book that you read this year and you thought to yourself after finishing, wow, this book would be perfect for blank. And the book I'm picking for this prompt is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Super, super cute book. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you know what this is about. And as soon as I finished it, I thought my mom would love this book. And I recommended it to her. She read it. She loved it, of course. And I think she's read a couple of the others in the series. I've yet to read the second in the series. But super, super cute book. And the person that I thought of immediately loved it too. So that worked out. The final prompt in this tag is Christmas cookies. For this prompt, share by tagging some of your friends. Now, I tagged folks last year, and I'm not going to tag anybody specifically this year because I feel like it puts undue pressure on folks, and I don't want to do that. So if you like this tag and you think it'll be fun, please go ahead and do the tag. I really, really encourage you, and it would actually mean a lot since it's a tag that I created. If you do end up doing the tag, please tag me. I would love to watch it. But even if you're not a booktuber, I would love to hear your answers to some of these prompts. But that is it for the tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you guys get a chance to read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? I would love to hear about it. Or you could just say hi down in the doodly-doo. If you're still watching at this point, please consider giving that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.